neighbourhood that has been on the brink for almost 5 years. But now, the clock is ticking on what will happen to the residents of Khan al-Akhmar, an illegal Bedouin village near Jerusalem. In 2018, the Israeli High Court ruled that the village, which is in the Israeli-controlled Area C of the West Bank, could be demolished and its citizens could be displaced due to illegal building in the outpost. This drew international condemnation, and following numerous delays, the High Court is set to hear a government response within the next few weeks on why the village hasn't been demolished. Yesterday, Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich urged the government to evict those in Khan al-Akhmar homes, leading to protests from residents. This comes shortly after a rift in the coalition over the destruction of the illegal Jewish outpost Or Chaim. Are settlements going to be the first major domestic challenge to the new government, and how will they react? Why has it taken successive governments so long to demolish a village of around 200? What's next for Khan al-Akhmar?
So let's get to it. What is next for Khan al-Akhmar? As always, we begin with a quick fire round, 30 seconds each to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we'll pick up the debate from there. So Brigadier General, Mr. Nitzan Nuriel, please take the lead.
Khan al-Akhmar is not a new issue. It started more than 20 years ago, and there are many decisions. I believe that the new government will study soon that things that you see from one point are totally different from a different point. And I cannot see any dramatic change by the Israeli policy regarding Khan al-Akhmar, mainly because of the involvement of a European government, such as Italy.
Yeah.
So, as I said, I cannot see any dramatic change in the next future.
Okay, Michael Kleiner, your take?
I believe Khan al-Akhmar will be finally demolished. It's a rarity that the Supreme Court rules with the government and against the government delaying. Usually they a rule for the Palestinians, and this time it's illegal. The people suffer there. We offer them a good solution, and I believe also in Italy there is a new government. So I believe it will be demolished, or there will never be a Jewish settlement in Judea and Samaria being demolished.
Okay, Sinijlawi, last but not least.
Well, I don't like using the term illegal because in 2018, the ICC warned Israel that evacuating and destructing Khan al-Akhmar will be considered a war crime. You should take into consideration that it's not the Israeli law that is enforced in Area C. It's the Jordanian law. And the Israeli army is only implementing the Jordanian law. So what is illegal is evacuating Khan al-Akhmar and not the existence of Khan al-Akhmar. These people were displaced from the 48. They are Bedouins from the Negev, and they were displaced in Khan al-Akhmar. So this is the second or the third time that they are being trying to displace again.
Okay, and let's feel free to interact from this point onwards, gentlemen. Now let's begin from the point Mr. Sinijlawi is making. If this is the rationale vis-a-vis this illegal Bedouin village, should that be the rationale vis-a-vis a Jewish outpost, Mr. Sinijlawi?
Well, two different things. Let me tell you why Khan al-Akhmar is important. Khan al-Akhmar, if they manage to destruct Khan al-Akhmar, this will lead to the destruction of another 24 similar communities in the West Bank that cover a total of 12 million square meters. So we are talking about a massive issue. Second, it comes as a plan for the building of E1 settlement. And if E1 settlement goes to execution, this will be the death certificate for a Palestinian statehood, because it will split the West Bank into two. There will be no continued Palestinian state ever. That's why this issue is very sensitive for the international community. The international community simply say to Israel, if you leave if you take off the two-state solution from the table, what are you leaving on the table?
Okay, but before we get to the international community and the two-state solution, Brigadier General Mr. Nuriel, is there a double standard when it comes to Jewish and Arab illegal building?
This is once again a big issue because there are some people keep saying that the Palestinian ongoing building on Area C is not really opposed by the government, and they do almost everything they want. And yes, there are some, even more than some, illegal Jewish settlement in the West Bank, and this is a big issue that we need to solve around the table. Evacuate one and leave another will not solve the problem. And therefore, I believe that we need to look into the largest scope and try to solve it from all sides. Even though we are speaking today about some political players, they do not accept those type of solutions. And yes, we need to look into the Jewish unlegal settlements as like the unlegal Palestinian settlements.
Mr. Kleiner, as you've alluded to in your opening remarks, there's a very clear Supreme Court ruling here, quite a rare one, in agreement with the government. Why the stalling?
No, I cannot understand it because of the international pressure. When Mrs. Merkel was Prime Minister of Germany, she was very keen and pressured the Israeli government, and we delayed it because we wanted to make things clear and maybe to improve the solution for those Bedouins, which we will give them a much better standard of living. I want to say something. The Jordanian law, of course, applies, and the Supreme Court knows all the laws and all the rules, and as it's not very generous with this government when it makes a ruling that this settlement of the Bedouins must be evicted, so they considered all the laws. You cannot, on one hand, say the Supreme Court is very important. You know, we have a debate today.
Very timely.
How strengthened we can. So one of the arguments that the left is bringing is Supreme Court as a respect in the world.
Yeah, but at the moment there's a right-wing government.
So to the pressure and the international world, if you intervene now and you say it's so important to keep the Supreme Court strong, so now you have a decision of this Supreme Court, so respect it and let our government to respect it. Otherwise, we don't take you seriously when you come and praise
at the moment, Mr. Kleiner,
our Supreme Court for other decisions.
Yeah, but at the moment there's a right-wing government, so those claims are becoming quite redundant to an extent.
And this right-wing government says that must be equality, as my colleague before said. If you want to destroy Jewish illegal settlements, please destroy also Arab illegal settlements. And if you don't destroy Arab illegal settlements, you will not touch in this government a Jewish settlement, and then you will have a lot of Jewish illegal settlements. And the E1 is not connected to it. This is another issue, another pressure. Here we speak about a decision of the Supreme Court that must be respected by this government.
So let's cut to the chase here. Has Israel lost sovereignty over its Bedouin and Arab citizens, Mr. Sinijlawi?
Well, let me a little bit say something over this whole argument. Maybe the Israeli right wing enjoys these tiny victories of evacuating one community here and destroying or destruction of one Palestinian building or structure here and there in Area C. I will tell them enjoy these tiny victories because you are simply killing the two-state solution. I recognize that the settlement project have won the battle in the West Bank. We have lost this battle, and the right wing has won it. But you are waking up your nightmare. And your nightmare is the one-state reality. One state. Now the Palestinians will tell you, fine, there is no possibility for statehood, for right to self-determination. We want equal rights. We want to vote. What will you tell the world? We cannot we cannot give them the right to self-determination, and we don't want them to be equal citizens. Then there is one explanation for this situation, is apartheid. You are bringing yourself to a very sensitive situation in front of the whole world. So if this is something important for you, you want to distract Khan al-Akhmar, you want to go further, confiscate more land in Area C, distract more Palestinian communities there, build more settlements, good for you. Then welcome to the nightmare of the one-state reality.
Mr. Nuriel, you're listening to Mr. Sinijlawi. Is it a question of sovereignty here?
No doubt that we do have problem not only in Judah and Samaria, also in the southern part of Israel regarding the Bedouins, and therefore we need to come with a holistic solution and to provide those people better quality of life. No doubt that they deserve better quality of life, and unfortunately the Palestinian Authority in a way stopped and did not let them move into any new area which can provide them better quality of life. So it's not only question of sovereignty, it's also question of what are the basic human rights to the Bedouins. I belong to those who believe that they deserve to live in a modern place, and I believe that they deserve very good education system and place
I don't
to
think
work.
anyone denies that these are rights. But in the short time we have left before we conclude the first part of our discussion, Mr. Kleiner, at the same time as we've mentioned in the opening introduction, the destruction of the Ol Chaim outpost, will it metastasize into a coalition crisis here?
I believe that if there will be an equal policy of keeping to the laws and the rules, keeping to decisions of the Supreme Court, and most of the decisions of the Supreme Court regarding lands in Judea and Samaria tend to the Palestinians and not to the settlers. So I believe there will be no government crisis. So if there is a crisis, they will overcome it. One word about our Israeli Bedouins, which are Israeli citizens. We have to do a lot to improve their life, to find a solution, to give them, as my colleague before said, give them a good life. Many of them are loyal citizens. Some of them serve in the Israeli army. Those Muslim Bedouins in the north and in the south, and this is an obligation of the Israeli state to give them a better life. It's about the people in the Negev. Those people of Khan and Akhmar, the moment they abide the law, will get a better life as well.
Mr. Kleiner, we're putting a stop right here because we do need to take a very short break, but we continue our discussion and talk about the international community's intervention once we get back. So do not go anywhere. A few minutes break, and we're back. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us, Mr. Michael Kleiner, Mr. Samer Sinijlawi, and Major General in the Reserves, Mr. Nitzan Nuriel. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much for staying with us. We're also staying on topic, but before we get back to our conversation, let's take a listen to some Likud lawmakers on the ground today. Here's what they told I-24 News.
All the necessary permissions are on the table, including the approval of the Supreme Court of Israel. It's just up to the defense minister and the prime minister to decide. I think that the sooner the action will be taken, the less problem it will create, because as we see right now, there are additional forces joining them. They have nothing to do with Khan al-Akhmar. They come from the Palestinian Authority in order to prevent any peaceful solution, any solution actually for these families. These families need a home, a permanent home, not an illegal construction here. A solution exists. They just have to be courageous enough to take it, though the pressure is coming, as I've said, every day from the Palestinian Authority.
So let's kickstart our conversation with another quick round of 30 seconds each. Is the two-state solution still relevant? Mr. Sinijlawi, please take the lead.
Definitely, the two-state solution has died, and even I doubt it was born. Two-state solution was a lie. The moment Israel occupied the Palestinian territories in 1967, they knew that this occupation is permanent. They knew that they will not exit one day, and they have acted accordingly. And you can see the spread of the settlement project, 400 settlements with huge infrastructure connecting it. Billions and billions of dollars are invested there. This is not a temporary situation. It's a permanent situation.
Mr. Sinijlawi, we'll put a stop right here and get back to it in a second. Michael Kleiner, your thoughts?
Most Israelis today oppose this solution because they realize it means the destruction of the state of Israel. You can see the Palestinian policies. You can see the Palestinian school books. You can see the way they glorify terrorists. All this shows that Israel would not exist. We left the Gaza Strip in 2005. Every Israeli soldier withdrawn. The Israeli settlements were dismantled, and instead of peace, we got a terrible terror in the whole south of Israel. If this would have happened in Judea and Samaria, we would have no Israel.
Okay, Mr. Nuriel, last but not least, your take?
Yes, this is a political question, and I'm not a politician, but I would like to focus on the fact.
Please.
Two-state solution is still relevant. It's a political decision. The state of Israel shows in the past when the Israeli government take a decision to evacuate Israelis, as we did in Sinai back in 82, as we did in Gaza, and as we did in the northern part of Samaria. We know how to do it.
There were 7,000. You have 1 million people. You have 1 million people.
Sir, I didn't interrupt you. Let me finish my, at least, the fact.
Okay.
I'm not so sure that there are 1 million Israelis who live in Judah and Samaria. I drove too many maps regarding the potential solution, and I believe that most of us understand that by the end, you need to evacuate much less. And yet, this is a political decision.
Yeah.
The option's still on the table. By the way, I belong to those who believe that we need to go into the three-state solution, the state of Gaza, state minus in Judah and Samaria, and the state of Israel. And yes, we need to take the chance. We need to stay strong. We don't have any other option. As it was said before, leaving that solution, meaning that we are speaking about one-state solution, and from my perspective, it's much worse than two-state solution.
Okay, we do encourage interaction here. So, Mr. Sinijlawi, not one, not two, maybe 3 countries. That's the way to roll.
Well, let me just refer to what your guest has mentioned about Palestinians supporting and endorsing terrorism. Well, there is a minister in the current cabinet that was supportive and endorsing Goldstein, placing his picture in his living room. And I will not be surprised if in next election this Ben-Gvir might be the new prime minister in Israel, and maybe Yigal Amir, if he is released from prison, the one that assassinated Rabin, will be the minister of national security or the minister of justice. This is where the Israeli community is going, to racism, to extreme right wing, and. Yes, the two-state solution was killed because of the settlement policy. I agree there are around 700, 800,000 settlers now in the West Bank. And if any prime minister, if Ahmad Tibi will become prime minister and decides to evacuate them, there will be civil war inside Israel. These facts are irreversible. But where are we leading now? The question, you took off the two-state solution from the table. What is left? Are you accepting me and 7 million other Palestinians as equal citizens? You will say no, because we want to keep Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. Then what are you offering us?
Mr. Kleiner.
To stay in a two-floor solution where I am at the servant floor, you are at the master's floor. Do you think this is sustainable? It's not only not acceptable by the whole world, but it's only not sustainable. It cannot be sustainable.
Mr. Kleiner.
There are many solutions. Especially we are on the way by having a peace with the Arab world. this may encourage Israelis to take risks in the agreement with the Palestinians, but you don't expect me to solve a conflict of 100 years with a detailed solution in the 40 seconds which you give me.
No, you have more than 40 seconds now, and you've mentioned Saudi Arabia. How will this all affect the attempts to normalize ties with Riyadh?
I believe many Arab countries, especially the Gulf countries, realized that the insecurity of the Israeli population regarding the Palestinian attitude towards people who killed the women and children in Judea and Samaria, the financing them, giving them money and subsidies, this whole attitude doesn't encourage the Israeli people to trust. On the other hand, peace with Arab countries does. We all want a solution. We all want that the people in Judea and Samaria will have the same rights as any other free citizen, and not what's the situation today, which is very bad. But if they have a better situation for citizens than citizens, for example, in Lebanon, because of the Jewish settlements, because of the places of the jobs they are offering, with much higher salaries than the Palestinian Authority is paying. So if today people in Arabs in Israel are better off than Arabs in Judea and Samaria, but Arabs in Judea and Samaria are much better off than people in Lebanon, Syria, and many other Arab countries.
Okay, and what's at stake here, gentlemen, is obviously the Jerusalem-Washington relations here. Will Benjamin Netanyahu compromise his right-wing partners for the sake of industrial quiet, so to speak, vis-a-vis the U.S., Mr. Nuriel?
Again, I don't want to be pushed into the political aspect of that conflict. Yes, I believe that our prime minister needs to compromise. He needs to find very creative solutions, because the very right wing in his government will challenge him every day, and I'm not so sure that he has enough solutions. Therefore, he needs to maneuver. And we shall see what the next future will bring us. I'm not an optimist from that aspect.
Mr. Sinijlawi, concluding remarks in the short time we have left?
I agree that we should be shedding tears for any victim on the Israeli side. But I really can't find an explanation why everybody is not sensitive to Palestinian lives who are lost. Our blood is being spilling like water, and nobody notices this. Even some people celebrate this blood spilling as if it is a blessed raining. You should understand that there are terror on both sides,
yes,
and there are injustice committed towards both sides, and there are victims that have been killed in the Palestinians.
No doubt about that. Mr. Sinijlawi, we need to end our discussion now because we do need to take another break. So thank you, gentlemen, so very much for your time and insight this evening. We're heading for a break. Thank you, and see you back on the show. We're back in 2 minutes.